It started with laundry. That's how betrayals always start, not with a bang, but with something small and ordinary. One Sunday afternoon, as I was sorting through a basket of clean clothes, folding socks, I felt something hard slip into the back pocket of my husband's jeans. It wasn't money or a receipt. It was a folded envelope, wrinkled and soft from being carried around. I almost didn't look. I wish I hadn't, but I did. Inside was a sheaf of papers, official looking. I opened them, curious at first, then confused, then cold all over. Adoption profile. I stared at the top of the page where it read, Completed State of California, Department of Family Services. The child's name was not a stranger's. It was Noah. My Noah, our son. The boy I had carried in my heart and in my home for the past 5 years. The boy I thought we had adopted together. But only one parent's name is listed on those papers. His, Eric Wallace. Do you have it? Not mine. My hands were shaking. At first, I thought it was a clerical error, something we had to update, but the dates told a different story. The adoption had been finalized 5 months before we were married. Before we even met, I felt the air thicken, my heart pounding as if it were trying to escape what my brain had realized. Eric had adopted Noah on his own, and then somehow pretended we had adopted him together. I stood frozen in the laundry room, my socks still open on my thighs, my throat dry and burning. The sun outside our Denver house shone softly and golden, as if it didn't know the ground beneath me had shifted. Eric was in the kitchen, humming as he prepared dinner. He used to do that whistling as he chopped onions, swaying his hips as he stirred the sauce. I used to find it charming. Now it seemed like a performance. I walked in, holding the papers as if they might catch fire. Eric, I said, my voice hardly my own. He looked up, smiling softly. Hey, baby, are you okay? I placed the papers on the table between us. His smile faded as soon as he saw them. There was a long silence. He didn't ask how I found them. He didn't even reach for the papers. Instead, he said, I was going to tell you. I clenched my fists when on his high school graduation, on his wedding day. On the day he asked why I wasn't on his birth certificate, I'm not lying, he said too quickly. You made me believe my voice broke, that we adopted him together, that he was ours. He is ours. He is your son in every important way. Except for legal issues, I snapped. He bowed his head. I won't stay. Not then. I'd think it was too much. That's worse than the newspapers. Because that means he didn't just lie. He decided who I was, what I was capable of, and then he created a reality to match. I walked outside. I didn't slam the door. I didn't scream. I just walked into the backyard and sat on the cold metal chair we'd bought at a flea market in Boulder. I stared at the lawn, at the flowers I had planted last spring, and tried to feel as if I were still alive here, but the seeds of doubt were sown. If he could lie about this, what else could he lie about? And who was I in Noah's life? Would the court consider me his mother? That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, eyes wide open in the dark, listening to Eric's breathing. It used to feel good. Now it sounded like a stranger breathing in the bed next to me. I kept seeing Noah's face, his grin, the way he hugged me after school, the way he whispered, I love you, Mom, when he thought I was asleep. So I wasn't Mom. Was I just a woman playing house with a borrowed name? At dawn, I slid out of bed and opened my laptop. I needed to know. I looked up family law attorneys in Colorado. I looked up retroactive adoption, legal guardianship, biological parent rights. What I found chilled me. Because legally, I was not Noah's mother. I can't stop shaking. By 7 a.m., Eric was up and making pancakes like it was a normal Monday. I can't pretend anymore. I want answers, I said as I stood in the doorway. He looked at me, spoon in hand. I told you. No, I interrupted. I want everything. From the beginning. Don't beat around the bush. Don't try to protect me. Just tell me the truth. He sighed, turned off the stove, and leaned against the counter. I was 29. He began. I was dating someone. It wasn't serious. She got pregnant. She didn't want the baby. Didn't believe in abortion. She offered me full custody if I agreed to never have anything to do with her again. I agreed. Noah was born, and I became a father overnight. I sat there, my heart pounding. 2 years later, I met you. I didn't tell you because I didn't know how to say it. You were smart and kind and everything she wasn't. And Noah loved you. You loved him. It felt so natural, like the three of us were always meant to be. Tears welled up in my eyes. You built our life on a lie. I built it on love, he whispered. But I know that it's not enough anymore. He reached out for me. I stepped back. That day, I drove to a law office. I wanted to know what my rights were, what I didn't have. The lawyer's words were bitter. You have no legal standing. You are not his foster mother. Can I fix it? Maybe. But the birth mother would need to sign a new adoption petition, or the court would need to recognize the stepfather's adoption. What if she refuses? The lawyer smiled sadly. Then you have to fight. It won't be easy. I walked out of that office knowing two things. One, this isn't over yet. And second, Eric was right about one thing. I used to be able to leave, but now I have the ability to do something even more powerful. Fight back, not out of anger, not out of revenge, but for Noah. Because love deserves to be written down on paper. And I will claim my share. I wasn't planning on going to the company party. In fact, I'd forgotten it ever happened. I used to mark events like that in red ink on our shared calendar, picking out dresses weeks in advance, making sure Ethan's cufflinks were polished, his suit dry cleaned. But those days seemed like another lifetime. This year, he never even mentioned it. He left the invitation casually on the kitchen counter, an afterthought. I didn't ask if I was going. I wasn't allowed to. That much was clear. His silence was permission to stay home, but then Sophie brought it up again at dinner. Are you coming to your fancy party, Daddy? She asked as she bit into her macaroni and cheese, her fork clinking against her plate. Ethan didn't look up. It's not really family, he muttered, scrolling through his phone. It's just work. There was something about the way he said it. Contemptuous. Like I didn't belong in that world anymore. Like I was just the woman who cooked dinner. I smiled at Sophie. No, honey. I think I'll give this to Dad. But that night, as I was loading the dishwasher, I heard Ethan talking in the den. The door was half closed, but his voice echoed. Brooke's dress just arrived, he said. That's right. She looks stunning in her emerald green dress. She deserves to shine. He paused. Then he chuckled. No, Rachel won't be there. Trust me, she won't fit in. That was the moment. Not the dress. Not even the name. That is an assumption. The confidence with which he erased me from his life without malice, without thought, as if I had just died. I turned off the dishwasher, walked slowly upstairs and opened the back of the closet. I knew exactly what I was looking for. A dress, black, simple, tailored. I bought it 5 years ago, after Sophie was born, for one of Ethan's awards shows. I never wore it. I thought it made me look too serious, too bold. But now I want it. The next morning, I booked a hair appointment at a downtown salon and dropped the kids off at school without saying a word about my plans. I'm not doing this for Ethan. I need to see it with my own eyes. That night, I arrived alone. The party was at the Grand Terrace Hotel, a historic building with marble columns and gold-trimmed chandeliers that made everything look more expensive than it actually was. I walked into the lobby, my heels clicking on the polished floor. Heads turned, not because I was the most beautiful woman in the room, but because I was the most surprised. I saw him immediately. Ethan stood near the bar, a drink in his hand, surrounded by his colleagues and sponsors. He was wearing a tailored navy suit, one I had helped pick out last year. Brooke stood next to him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. Her dress was emerald green, just as he had said. She was laughing too loudly at something he had whispered. And then he saw me. His expression stiffened just for a moment, then he recovered, giving a polite, solemn smile, the kind you give to a stranger at a funeral. I nodded, just once, and walked to the farthest corner of the room. I didn't have to get close to hear the whisper. Is that his wife? She shouldn't have come here. Oh my God, she looks different. I let them talk, let them speculate, because sometimes the quietest woman in the room is the one who writes the whole story. A waiter handed me champagne. I took it and stood by the window, looking out at the city skyline. For the first time in months, I felt present. And then I heard my name, not from Ethan, from Daniel Cohen. He is the general counsel of the company, sharp and well-liked. We met many years ago at a charity event. Rachel, he said, approaching with genuine surprise. I almost didn't recognize you. Funny? That happens to me a lot these days. He smiled. Are you okay? I want to say no. I want to say that everything is falling apart, that my husband is in love with his assistant, and that my daughter is posting Instagram captions that give me goosebumps. Instead, I said, better than expected. Daniel nodded. I'm always tougher than people think I am. I blinked. That comment had more meaning than I expected. Across the room, Ethan's laughter pierced the air. Brooke touched his chest and leaned in. That's when it happened. Small climax. Small, but intense. Brooke reached for Ethan's glass, and he let her pour him a sip. Like a lover. In public, at a company event, in front of his coworkers, in front of me. And no one flinched. Not his boss, not his friends. Not even the waiter refilling a glass of champagne nearby. They accepted her. She is yours now. And I'm just an old sheet of paper in a forgotten file. I left before the speech started. As I stepped out into the cold night air, I exhaled so deeply that it surprised me. It was like I had been holding my breath for months without even knowing it. I don't cry. I am not angry. I just stood there, letting the wind blow against my skin, and whispered to myself, you are not invisible anymore. Not anymore. The consequences did not occur until the next morning. I found Ethan in the kitchen, drinking coffee. Was the party fun? I asked calmly. He looked up, surprised to see that I was awake. You shouldn't have come here, he said bluntly. That's not your crowd. No, I agreed, pouring myself a cup. But watching you pretend to be someone you're not, it feels familiar. He did not reply. I leaned against the counter. Brooke looks beautiful. He was a little stiff. I smiled. She should. You're invested in her. Still silent. I walked over, put the cup in the sink, and turned to him. You made me invisible. Ethan. But last night, I remembered something. What is that? My name? He frowned. Rachel Carter. I said. J.D. His face was a little sad. He had forgotten. I was a lawyer before I was your wife. I still am. And I'm starting to remember what it feels like to be seen. He opened his mouth, but I raised my hand. Hold it. I said. We'll talk later. Right now. I have a call to make. I left the kitchen, walked up the stairs, and closed the door to the guest room, which I had quietly turned into a workspace for the past 2 weeks. I sat down, opened my laptop, and created a new folder. Title, Operation Exit. I'm in no hurry, but I was ready. And this time, I won't leave quietly. They say silence can be deafening. But the night I opened the DNA envelope, the silence was worse than deafening. It was surgical. Cold. Clinical. A scalpel severing the last strands of denial I still clung to. The man I married. The man who makes pancakes with the kids every Sunday. The man who coaches Little League and signs birthday cards with hearts. He is not their father. Not biologically. The email arrived that morning. Subject line: paternity test results. Confidential. I stared at it for 10 minutes. I made coffee. I watered the plants. I checked the locks on every door and window. A strange new ritual I had developed since the whole world started spinning off its axis. Then I sat down, heart pounding against my ribs like a Morse code distress signal, and dialed. 3 kids. 3 tests. 3 zeros. Probability of determining father and son 0%. I printed the results. 3 pages, black and white, no drama, just data, cold, hard, uncompromising. And then I remembered in vitro fertilization. Years of shots, failed cycles, sleepless nights, crippling pain that makes you forget your own name. We went through 5 rounds. We cried together. We held hands in bleach-smelling waiting rooms and lost hope. Or at least I think so. At the time, Andrew insisted on using his own genetic material. We were building a family. Our family, he said. He even boasted once, while drunk on champagne in the hospital, that our children would inherit his heart-healthy genes. The irony now turns bitter. Because I carried them, raised them, loved them. And he lied to me. This is not just a betrayal of fidelity. It is a betrayal of biology, of consent, of the sacred agreement we made not as lovers, but as co-creators of life. I held the pages to my chest and breathed slowly. Then I walked into the bedroom and opened the drawer where I kept my IVF documents, old, yellowed, forgotten, and there it is. The sentence I missed then. In rare cases, donor material may be substituted at the physician's discretion due to quality concerns. Buried in jargon, hidden in footnotes. A hole wide enough for someone like Andrew to slip through with a lie in one hand and a medical license in the other. I need confirmation. I reached for my phone and called the only person who might know the truth, Dr. Benjamin Lowe. He answered on the second ring. Rachel, I've been expecting this call. There was a long silence on the line. Then he asked softly, Do you want to know the truth? Only if it's all, I said. The next morning, I drove 2 hours to a clinic in Colorado Springs. It was a quiet, clean building with soft music that made my skin itch. Dr. Lowe met me in his office. No white coat, just a sweater, glasses, and a man who looked like he had been carrying too many secrets for too long. He gave me a flash drive. "Everything you need is here," he said. Test records, internal emails, donation logs. I didn't ask him how he got them. I asked the only question that matters. Did Andrew use donated material without my consent? Dr. Lowe nodded, slowly. That's right. Not every cycle, but at least 3 cycles. He claimed it was a medical necessity, but he never noted it in your records. My mouth went dry. Why? Lowe hesitated. Then, because her husband has heart disease, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It's genetic. He doesn't want to pass it on to others or reveal it. That would jeopardize his career. My hands were shaking, not from shock, but from anger. So he played God. He took away your choice, Dr. Lowe said. And that is something that medicine cannot justify. I drove home in silence. The flash drive sat like a bomb in my bag. That night, while the kids were watching a movie, I excused myself. I went into my office, locked the door, and opened the file. Email between Andrew and the clinic director. Note marked urgent replacement. Signature, date. All went smoothly with 3 successful rounds of IVF. I downloaded the files, saved them in 3 separate folders, one for my attorney, one for a secure cloud account, one to print and keep under lock and key. Then I sat down on the couch next to the kids. Max leaned on my shoulder. Ava curled up in my lap. And I knew. I am not just their mother. I am their only real parent. I don't care where their chromosomes come from. They come from me. The next day, I called Megan. Now we have more than adultery, I said. We have reproductive fraud, violations of medical ethics, and intent to deceive. There was a pause. Rachel, she said slowly, are you ready to go public with this? This could destroy him. I do not hesitate. He destroyed us first. We started to implement the plan. Megan contacted the Colorado Board of Medical Ethics. A formal complaint was filed. A private investigator was hired to gather corroborating evidence. We contacted a journalist, an old college friend who now works for a national media outlet. I'm not looking for a scandal, I told him. I'm looking for justice. And then we wait. That weekend, I took the kids to the park. I watched them run and laugh, unencumbered. They didn't know yet. Didn't know their father had chosen deception over honesty. Didn't know they were the product of someone else's DNA. But they know love. And that's enough. For now. That night, I covered Ava with a blanket. She looked up at me and whispered, Mommy, are you okay? You're so quiet. I smiled and kissed her forehead. Just thinking about how lucky I am. Why, because I have you. And at that moment, I was no longer afraid. I am no longer the betrayed wife. No longer the woman who was cheated on by her husband. I'm Rachel Carter, J.D., mom, warrior, and I just found out the truth. Not the kind that can break you. The kind that sets you free. Some revenge comes with fire. Mine came with high heels and a black dress. When I opened the envelope, my hands were steady, but my heart was restless. The thick, metallic printed card was an invitation to the Fairmont Health System's annual recognition gala, held at the prestigious The Prescott Hotel in downtown Boston, and the name was printed large at the top, Dr. Ethan Carter, Physician of the Year. Hook. My heart ached not from jealousy, but from sarcasm. I used to think Ethan was a man who deserved everything. Now I know. He was just better at hiding it than the average person. Setup. The award ceremony is held on Saturday night, a formal event where prestigious doctors are honored and donors are thanked. Where Ethan will take the stage and speak about medical ethics in front of hundreds of people, while he himself is a liar, a traitor, and a manipulator. I did not hesitate long. I would come, but I would not go as a betrayed wife. I would come as a woman who had gathered enough facts to expose a hypocrite. Incident. 3 days before the event, I went to see Ethan's lawyer, or rather, former lawyer. Somehow, word had gotten out that Ethan might be under internal investigation, and his lawyer, who was a confidant, called me. "Rachel, if you have something to say, now is the time. Before the ethics committee hears it from the press." I nodded. "Meet me at 2. I'll bring everything." Rising action. I printed out all the evidence in a thick file. Ethan's email to Brooke discussing embezzlement of travel expenses under the guise of a medical conference. The bill for a luxury hotel in Maui. The surveillance footage from the Westfield Capitol office on the Thursday night. Ethan said he was meeting with the board of directors. And most importantly, a copy of the company's internal policy that Ethan signed, which clearly stated that any fraudulent expense or relationship with a subordinate was a serious violation and would result in immediate dismissal. The attorney was silent as I spoke. After a few minutes, he said slowly, "Do you know this could completely end Ethan's medical career?" I know. I looked him straight in the eye. And I know he started this marriage a long time ago. I'm just finishing what he started. Mini climax that night. I stood in front of the mirror in my old bedroom, where I used to cry every night when Ethan started to ignore me. The black dress hugged my curves, not too glamorous, but full of charisma. I put on light makeup, revealing a strong gaze. As I walked down the hall of the Prescott, the yellow lights reflecting off the marble floors, I saw Ethan standing with Brooke over glasses of champagne, laughing at a group of colleagues. She was wearing red, always the color of cockiness, but I didn't let myself get caught up in the emotion. I walked past them without blinking. Brooke paused, but Ethan pretended not to see me. I sat down at table number 7, the table reserved for family and honored guests. The seat next to me was empty. I didn't invite anyone. No need. Fallout? Reaction. The ceremony begins. The MC reviews the year's accomplishments. After a few performances praising dedication and work ethic, they invite Ethan to speak. He stepped onto the stage to applause. His voice echoed through the microphone. Being a doctor is not just about understanding professional knowledge. It is also about trust. Patients put their lives in our hands, and we have a responsibility to repay them with absolute honesty. I chuckled. It was perfect for an exposé. I glanced at my watch. 8:17 p.m. I stood up and left the hall. In the hallway behind the auditorium, I met 2 people waiting: the medical board's internal investigation attorney and an HR representative from Westfield Capitol. They had received a copy of my file that afternoon. I nodded. He's on stage. Chapter close. When I returned to the banquet room, Ethan had just finished his last sentence. And to my wife, who has always supported me even when we were in difficult times, I would like to send my deepest thanks. I walked over to the table, took a cream envelope from my bag, a copy of the investigation results inside, and placed it in front of Brooke. She paled. Ethan, on seeing 2 men in black suits approaching him, froze like a statue. "Dr. Ethan Carter," one of them said. "We need you to come with us to clear up some violations of professional ethics and use of personal funds." The whole room was silent. I turned away, leaving his horrified gaze behind. That night, I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I just sat in my car, staring at my reflection in the window. I am no longer the woman left behind on my 40th birthday. I'm Rachel Carter, J.D., and this time, I enter the battlefield with the law and win with the truth. They say you find yourself when everything falls apart, but I didn't find myself. I built her from the rubble he left behind. 3 weeks after the party, I woke up to silence. Not the stuffy kind, the kind filled with avoidance and unspoken lies, but a warm, gentle silence, like the sound of snow falling outside a safe house. The kids sleep in. Coffee is made on the hour. My phone doesn't light up with his name, or school announcements, or another email from the lawyer. The storm has passed, and I'm still here. Ethan was gone from our home, from the company, from his carefully crafted image of the perfect executive husband. He was now the subject of internal ethics investigations, facing termination without severance, and most likely a legal settlement that would cost him more than money. He tried to call me, once, maybe twice. I didn't pick up. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in years. I drew. It all started with a blank canvas on the porch, a warm cup of tea beside me. No plan, just color. I mixed crimson with slate blue and poured myself into the brushstrokes. What emerged wasn't pretty. It was raw, twisted, honest. That's me. Rachel was silenced, fired, betrayed. She had something to say, and for the first time, I let her talk. Sophie also started talking again. It took time. Weeks of quiet meals, therapy sessions, and slow, honest answers to difficult questions. At first, she hated me. Then she hated him. Then she hated us both. That's how grief works, like a pendulum swinging from one end of the emotional spectrum to the other. But gradually, those sharp edges become blunt. One night, while folding laundry, she sat on my bed and asked, "Do you really love Dad?" I folded a t-shirt and put it in the drawer. "Yes," I said, enough to believe in the version of him I thought was real, enough to hurt. She looked at me and nodded, as if that was the only answer that made sense. We are rebuilding not what we had, but something new, something that belongs only to us. Liam still asks questions about the Maui trip, about Brooke, about why Dad doesn't live with us anymore. I tell him the truth, gently, every time. Dad made some choices that weren't kind or fair. And sometimes, when people hurt others, they need to face the consequences. That doesn't mean we stop loving Dad, but it does mean we stand up for ourselves. He doesn't always understand, but he listens, and that's a start. I hired a financial advisor, set up new accounts, closed joint accounts, changed locks, wills, passwords. I joined a women's group that met every Wednesday night at a community center in Lincoln Park. We drank tea, shared stories, laughed out loud, and cried without apology. I am not the only woman who has been cheated on, but I am one of the few who choose not to be broken. One afternoon, I received a call from Thomas Reynolds at Westfield. "Rachel," he said, "we want you inside." Why, I asked cautiously. "We are creating a new department, ethics and oversight. We want someone with direct experience, someone who doesn't back down." I almost dropped my phone. This is not a consolation prize. This is a seat at the table that I usually reserve for others. I agreed, and on that first day, when I walked into the shiny glass building where I once delivered Ethan's forgotten lunch, I was no longer the forgotten wife. I'm Rachel Carter, J.D., Director of Ethics and Compliance, and what is the first thing I do? I hired 3 women who had left their jobs after divorce. One brought donuts on her first day. Another wore squeaky shoes. The third cried when she saw her name tag. We have built something real. On my 41st birthday, I didn't expect any balloons or surprises, but Sophie woke me up with pancakes. They're a little burnt," she said. "But I don't want you making your own birthday breakfast." I smiled and ate every bite. That night, after the kids went to bed, I sat on the couch with a book I'd been meaning to finish for months. The house was quiet, not empty, just peaceful. Then the doorbell rang. That's Brooke. She stood there in jeans and a hoodie. No makeup, no pride. Just an imperfect woman. I said nothing. She held out a small envelope. "This is a letter of resignation," she said, "and an apology." I took it. Still silence. "I know you don't owe me anything," she continued, "but I need to say it." I nodded. Then I closed the door. Forgiveness does not need to be witnessed. 2 months later, Westfield released a company-wide training video. I wrote the script. The final slide content is as follows. Integrity isn't what you do when people are watching. It's what you do when they're not watching. My name is below. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge. It's peace. It is raising children with the truth. It is growing vegetables in your backyard. It laughed again, unfazed. It's knowing that the woman they thought was too quiet, too soft, too dependent just rewrites the ending. One night, Liam asked, "Mommy, do you ever miss the old days?" I looked out the window. The garden lights were flickering. The porch was littered with dried herbs and chipped cups. "Sometimes," I said, "but mostly I'm glad they're over. Because endings aren't always the worst thing. Sometimes, they are exactly what you need to become the person you want to be." What about me? I finally got home. There are truths no one wants to face, especially when they come from someone you once called family. But it's in our darkest moments that we see our true light. Rachel's story is more than a family tragedy. It's a journey of rebirth. It's proof that no matter how betrayed, overlooked, or stripped of your options, you still have the power to rewrite the next chapter of your life. What's most valuable isn't revenge. It's the choice to stand up with dignity. That's how Rachel moved from victim to leader, from left behind to redefining herself. If you've ever been hurt or doubted yourself because someone made you feel like you weren't good enough, you're not alone. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to move on. Like this video if it made you feel seen. Don't forget to leave a comment below, sharing what about the story resonated with you. And if you want to join us on more heartwarming journeys, subscribe and hit the notification bell, because the next story could be yours.